NFL Draft Week has arrived, and on today's Sports Beat KC, Kansas City Star sports columnists Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian tell you why the Chiefs are well positioned in this year's draft. Not because they're selecting number 32, but because of all the moves made prior to the draft, which begins on Thursday. It's Monday, April 20th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. After a break, we remember Pellom McDaniels, who passed away this weekend. McDaniels played 6 of his 7 NFL seasons with the Chiefs and was mostly a reserve defensive end and linebacker. His 14 career NFL starts all came with the Chiefs. But McDaniels lived quite a life as an academic and civic leader after football. He served as a professor at 2 universities, including UMKC, and has written several books. So here we are with Sam and Vahe talking Chiefs. Vahe's here, sitting across from me, at least 6 feet, a good 6 feet.
Yeah, I'd call it 6 feet, a good 6 feet.
Yes. And Sam is about 10 miles away. Sam, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you
Good,
guys?
good.
Just where we want you, Sam. 10 miles from us.
Yep, exactly.
Let's just get right into it. We are approaching, we're here, the week of the NFL draft, the one major a sporting event that has not been canceled, suspended, postponed, pushed back. It is going to happen. I'm just reading now that in the mock to the mock draft, the dry run, that there was a technical glitch with the Cincinnati Bengals' first pick. So they've got to work out a couple of bugs. But come Thursday, I think we're going to have the strangest of NFL drafts based on location. It was supposed to be in Las Vegas, and that was going to be a strange draft anyway. But now we're doing it indoors, and I want to get some thoughts from you guys on maybe drill down a little bit on who the Chiefs, what position group they might be thinking about. But before we do, Sam, I wanted to refer to your Sunday column that I thought was really interesting because you expressed that you think the Chiefs are in as good a position as any team in the NFL to handle this phase of NFL player acquisition, the draft, just because of the way they are constructed, the way they've been built, and I think it would have been true either way, whether there was COVID-19 or not. But the fact that there is COVID-19 and it has an impact on all the NFL teams, the Chiefs do seem to be in something of an enviable position.
For sure, yeah, I believe that. I mean, there's a lot of sort of on background griping that you read about from a lot of teams about the setup and, teams that wanted this whole thing delayed. And I don't get the sense that any of that stuff is coming from the Chiefs. I think that they are pretty adaptable. We've talked about this before. I think that's one of Andy Reid's great strengths, is his adaptability. I think that Brett Veach and look, it's the whole front office. Often reaches shorthanded to just Brett, but there's a lot of guys that work with and for him, and I think they're that way too. And so that's just like sort of the mechanical parts of it was just this strange deal. And it is good that the NFL got all the way to the number 1 pick overall before they had any technical glitches.
Yeah, they got the intro in, I think.
But then, if this was normal times and the draft was in Vegas and everybody was going to be there and all that stuff, I still think this draft would be laid out in a way that's advantageous for the Chiefs, just because, first of all, one thing, I'm actually writing a little bit about this right now, but I think one of the best things that Veach and that front office have done is they've kept themselves from being in a position to be desperate. If you're desperate for a certain position, all of a sudden you're taking a guy in the first round that probably should be in the second or third round, and it's just bad decisions can multiply, and the Chiefs just don't have a lot of glaring needs, and the needs they have are at positions, and I'm thinking mostly of corner, linebacker, and interior offensive line. Those are all positions that people who make their living studying this say are pretty deep in this draft. So it's just crazy to me, how much it seemed like the Chiefs just had chronic bad luck. And then 2 years ago, this unicorn quarterback starts playing, and they just had good luck ever since then. It's really, other than one notable offsides exception, right? But it just seems like everything's coming up Chiefs, and I feel like this draft is another example.
Well, you're right. I mean, look at just what happened in free agency. I think the Chiefs signed everybody they wanted to sign. They got the folks that they wanted. Most recently, Rashard Breeland, and we'll get into some positions here in a minute. But when you're returning 22, I think the numbers are 20 of 22 starters from the Super Bowl. And I want to say 35 or 36 of the players who suited up, of the 46 who suited up on Super Bowl night. That's I don't know what the recent numbers are for Super Bowl champions, but that's a heck of a number. And it's not like they're bringing back, Vahe, you and I've talked about this. It's not like they're bringing back aged veterans,
right?
Guys that are past or on the downside of their careers.
Yeah, we got talking about this a little bit. I can't remember now if it was a podcast or just one of our 6 feet away conversations in here recently. But, the way, for instance, the most recent dynasty that comes to mind, the Patriots have been pretty shrewd about their discards, right? And maybe even, I'd have to think harder about this, but maybe even at times guys that certainly had some NFL shelf life in front of them. But it's a different kind of landscape facing the Chiefs, because this nucleus really is, let's just say, for argument's sake, I bet you 90% of this roster is between 24 and 29. Something like that, right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And who's really about to be tapped out? Not really any of these guys. So between the points Sam makes, Andy's adaptability, continuity in the coaching staff, I think that it all sure bodes well, stacks up well for the Chiefs. If the Chiefs didn't participate in this draft, they would still be, I think, the team to reckon with next year. So that's just a way I look at it. We'll see what comes to pass, but they're pretty contoured to the situation.
So don't you think they can approach this draft, if they choose to, if they can approach this draft for thinking about 2022, 2021, 22, 23, and maybe when they have to come to some decision to re-sign somebody for veteran for a big contract, or you've got a guy at the same position on a rookie contract, and they seem you can get by with the rookie. Well, you've made you can make a financial decision based on guys that you take in this draft.
Yeah, given like the red shirt deal, I think that's another way that you can sort of operate from a position of strength, if you will. Because now we're talking about not just, I need to move a mountain because we just need a corner with this pick. So whatever the best corner is, that's who we're going to take. So now that you've eliminated that position, the positional need, but now you've also eliminated, we need somebody that can come in and start on day one. And there's going to be starters available with that 32nd pick. But, maybe you're going to ask about this, but, there's a big, Peter King mentioned that he's hearing a lot of stuff about the Chiefs wanting to trade up to take Henry Ruggs, the 4.27 speed wide receiver from Alabama, and he's a guy that they probably wouldn't need to contribute much at all the first year. But if next year Sammy Watkins is gone, now all of a sudden you've gotten cheaper and you've gotten faster, and those are the things. It's just seeing both sides of it from covering the Chiefs. You see it. This happens all over the league, but it's a different experience when you see it, sort of up close and personal. The years where it seemed like a bad decision begat a worse decision, and it was pushing them. I think of John Dorsey giving that contract to Dwayne Bowe, and Dorsey gets a lot of criticism for his cap management. In some ways, it's fair, but in that situation, the hell is he supposed to do? Like, he's got a new coach that wants to, build around being able to pass the ball. And the 2012 Chiefs, their number 2 receiver, I just looked it up this morning. I lived through it, but it's just weird to look back on it. Their number 2 receiver that year was Dexter McCluster. Dexter McCluster was their number 2 receiver. So, like, what's he supposed to do? You know, you got to give Dwayne Bowe the money, even if you're pretty sure it's not going to work out long term. So, you know, they've avoided that now. You know, like the Sammy Watkins contract, they're going to have, you know, like, I guess that's the exception, but, you know, they're in a position where they're just able to make sound, clear-minded decisions because they're not distracted by desperation.
Sam, you kind of gave me a visual on this that you opened up my mind on this a little bit more. You know, the position they're in is almost like being able to have like either a 12th guy on the field or a free safety sort of situation. They could gamble. They could play it conservative and you know, stockpile for next year. They're kind of free to do anything, I think is how I'm coming to look at this. And everybody's free to do anything, right? But they have the leverage and the I think the sort of state of mind with the way Brett has operated that they are really a wild card in this thing.
Yeah.
Well, they've put themselves in a position where even at 32, they can take the best player available, right? And maybe a Ruggs.
Just do that, right?
Maybe a Ruggs or a T. Higgins from Clemson or, you know, Trevon Diggs from Alabama, the corner. Of course, that could possibly fill a need. But maybe the best available player at 32 isn't a position that we think that they don't need to worry about right now. But they're kind of the luxury of taking that player and stashing him, you know, redshirting him as we've seen them do, and it's just listen. There's a reason they're picking number 32, right? They won the Super Bowl. They made a lot of great moves to get to the Super Bowl and to win it, and it looks like they're not having, like the Rams when they got to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They're not having to rebuild, dismantle, retool. It's just not the case. So having said all that, is there a position group if we see the Chiefs getting to 32 and who knows who's left at that point? But what are we looking at position group wise? Is there a need? Is there some place they need to bolster depth?
Yeah, I mean, I still think, like no roster's perfect. I still think they could use a corner. I think they could use a safety. I know they could use a linebacker, somebody they can cover. They could use some depth on the interior of the offensive line. It wouldn't hurt to have, one more running back, particularly one that in some ways is like Damian Williams, just another body, like somebody that's, got some wiggle, as they say, or at least used to say, can catch passes out of the backfield, something like that. They can pick and some positions like that. They could use some, an edge rusher would be great if we're just like making up lists, but they're not desperate for any one thing. I just think that's such an advantage.
Yeah.
And they don't, just in the last few years, but with a couple of exceptions, they don't go out and draft running backs. They go out and sign them.
Yeah.
And offensive linemen are, they don't, and since Eric Fisher, they did draft Mitch Morse high, and Allegretti, of course, was in last year's draft, but they've tended to find offensive linemen on, in the market and not on draft night as well. So it's just, I think it's an organizational philosophy. They think they can find good players on, without drafting them.
Yeah, especially as you said, the offensive linemen, and it's really pretty true with the backs, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. They signed Spencer Ware and just guys. Charkandrick West was somebody they signed as a undrafted free agent. And, Kareem Hunt's the only one I can remember them drafting in the last in the Andy Reid era.
That's the only one I remember. There might have been another. Who could it be though? Sam, do you remember another running back drafted?
Was Niles Davis before? Did Niles Davis come before Andy Reid?
Actually, he might have been that 2013 draft. Like
Niles Davis was a John Dorsey pick.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, good. Let's take a break here. When we come back, there's a couple other Chiefs issues we should talk about.
Hey, it's Blair.
we have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Back with Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian. We're talking Chiefs, NFL Draft. I was on a Facebook Live this morning with Quentin Lucas, the Kansas City mayor, who had about a 5-minute press conference in town trying to tout the idea of Kansas Cityans and those in the metro tailgating on draft night. You know, going supporting your local restaurants and grocery stores, and then on draft night, sitting in your driveway with family and tailgating. I thought that was, there's not much you can do, right? But I thought it was a nice idea.
Seems creative enough to me. I really wonder to what degree it will take.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, it depends on maybe where the influencers are on social media, Blair. Get yourself an Instagram account and get it going.
Might be what the weather, where the weather is that night. But anyway, hey, so we learned this morning officially, I think it occurred over the weekend, that Pellom McDaniels passed away. Young. I was reminded how young he was. 52.
52.
When he died.
Yeah.
And Vahe, I know you've been working on this story today.
Yeah, and I never knew Pellom. Blair, maybe you did a little bit, Sam, but he was done here in '98 with the Chiefs, but he was here at UMKC for a long time, and really kind of a Kansas City institution. I mean, chairman of the board of the Negro Leagues Museum and on the board of the World War I Museum. I ended up hearing about him through a friend of mine who was a friend of his. And I bring this up because this was not through a football circle. This was through a professor to community engagement circle. And as I've been trying to set up writing about it, that's the thing I've been most struck by. This guy is a true Renaissance man, and just very giving, very engaged. And I came across the fact that he has a patent for some kind of lubricant for dentistry, which has nothing to do with any of the other stuff he was involved in. And I just think that stands out to me as the kind of guy he was, and just sounds like a treasure. And people are obviously mourning him. And what we've been told through people that have been in touch with the family is that the death was sudden. I know they're probably, when something happens now, people probably immediately are wondering. You always wonder how somebody dies, but whether it's coronavirus related, at least at the point of us recording this, there's nothing that tells us that.
One thing about Pellom, he was done playing before I started at the Star. I mean, I remember him a little bit as a player, but the first time I met him was at the museum, at the Negro Leagues Museum, and somebody was like, "Have you met Pellom McDaniels?" And I was like, "That's the same name as that guy that used to play for the Chiefs, but why would he be in this baseball thing, And, he is just a fascinating guy. You could tell from the first 2 minutes of talking to him that his brain was, at least for me, operating at a different level than mine. And one thing, and I'm going to kick myself if I get this wrong, but I am 99% sure I'm right on this. He was... You mentioned, Vahe, that he was on the board of the museum, and during that transition period after Buck O'Neil passed away, Pellom was one of, if not the most outspoken proponent of Bob Kendrick getting that job over Greg Baker. And the board as a whole voted for Baker, and I think that was kind of the end of, not just Pellom, there were a couple others, but I think Pellom was really disappointed in that decision, and obviously turned out to be dead right. I mean, Greg Baker almost literally could not have been worse for the museum, and Bob Kendrick has been that place's spirit along with Buck almost since the inception. So guy and would be somebody that we'd probably be talking about right now, even if he never played for the Chiefs.
And Sam, I do think your timing stacks up right on that. I don't have it in front of me, but I think his chairmanship ended in 2011. Does that sound about right?
That was that timing. I remember talking to Pellom a little bit, and like when you can just hear frustration in somebody's voice. And it was, I remember exactly where I was in my, this loft downtown. I just remember exactly where I was in that place at the time when I was talking to him. It was just one of those conversations that felt really important. And I remember hearing his frustration in that of just like not understanding what everybody else was missing. And again, I just could not have been more right about that.
Yeah. He spent most of his career with the Chiefs and played on some good Chiefs teams in the 90s. Schottenheimer teams that won divisions and went to the playoffs. And he finished his career with the Falcons. So I was checking up on him this morning, and he was a professor at UMKC. He also was a professor at Emory University in Atlanta. So the two places where he, lived last as an NFL player left an incredible, mark on those communities.
Yeah.
At Emory, UMKC and Emory, and was civically involved in both communities. What an outstanding human being. Yeah,
and it's interesting you note that point, Blair, because I believe he grew up on the West Coast, but so he was sort of testimony, I guess, to that adage about wherever you go, there you are, and really planting himself there. And, obviously Kansas City's richer for it, and I'm sure Atlanta and Emory were too. And I'm going to try to read he did several books, including one, his last name escapes me. I'm embarrassed. His first name's Isaac, but he wrote about a very prominent African-American jockey who was the first man to win 3 Kentucky Derbies and also was born into slavery. And we don't know this story very well, and it's so much so that even as I was typing this 45 minutes ago, some of it's eluding me. But I'm going to learn more about it, and he spent 7 years researching that book. I think that's telling about who he was.
I know he won back about 5 or 6 years ago, he won a major award from the NCAA.
Silver Anniversary Award,
one of a handful of recipients. He played, I want to say, at Oregon State.
He did.
He grew up in California, but played at Oregon State, and started his career with the Eagles, played in the USFL, actually, for a couple years in Birmingham before he was discovered by the Chiefs.
Quick footnote on this also. I came across this. I was listening back to a video he did on the occasion of the NFL Silver Anniversary Award he got. So he doesn't get into pro football right out of college. Just goes ahead and takes a job at Procter & Gamble, like on some corporate thing. Goes back to play in whatever it was, the World League or USFL, from Procter & Gamble. I mean, just from the get-go, the whole path has been pretty different.
I'm glad you...
That's funny. You always hear about teams signing guys from the street. Like sign this guy off the street, or he was just selling insurance. You ever hear this guy was working at Procter & Gamble?
I'm glad you politely corrected me. It was the World League of Professional Football.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Not the USFL. USFL was earlier than when Pellom played, but a life well lived.
Yeah,
and certainly
absolutely
cut short at age 52. So, hey guys, thanks for sharing today, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Blair.
Yeah, man. See you guys.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Savannah Smith, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Cap tip to Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian for appearing on today's show. Hey, a programming note, on Thursday, the first night of the draft, we're planning our own NFL Draft show to be broadcast on the Star's Facebook Live channel. You'll hear from some of your podcast favorites like Vahe and Chiefs beat writer Herbie Teope, plus some football reporters from throughout the nation. I'll provide more details over the next couple days. So we'll be back on Tuesday with another Sports Beat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City every day.